Well, coming up on today's show, one of the Tesla Model 3's biggest critics becomes one of its biggest fans. Why a fifth of all parking spaces should be turned into EV charge points, and why the Lamborghini Aventador is going to be electrifying. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Hello and welcome to the Tuesday, the 17th of July edition of EV News Daily. It's Martyn Lee here with the news you need to know about electric cars and the move towards sustainable transport. Well, kicking off with some news in brief. Renault has confirmed the Australian dealers that are going to be selling the Zoe EV down under, while the electric hatchback's list price of $47,990 Aussie dollars before the on-road costs has also been announced. Tesla is extending the free unlimited supercharging for Model S and Model X with referral program, but only for another 2 weeks. A photo posted online showing the performance Model 3 has 116 mpge, which is less than the long-range version at 130 mpge. And Nissan design boss Alfonso Albaisa has been talking about the next Nissan GT-R and said the engineering team is developing the basic architecture of the program and debating how much electric assistance the powertrain will consist of. It might be a plug-in hybrid, full BEV, or remain powered by conventional engine. Well, let's get on to the first story today then, and the biggest critic of the Tesla Model 3 that I've ever seen, Sandy Munro, appears to have turned into its number one cheerleader. Well, Sandy Munro made a YouTube video with Autoline, the first release, about 6 months ago, one of the first releases of the Tesla Model 3. They got hold of one, and he didn't hold back. He was not a fan.
This thing is a miserable job.
And he didn't like the fit and finish.
If we look over here, I can barely get my fingernail in. And then we look over here, I can almost put my thumb in. These are flaws that we would see on a Kia in the 90s or something.
Well, then he took it for a drive, and then they took it apart. And he somewhat changed his tune. In fact, he's done a total 180. A new video just hit YouTube only a few hours ago. And in the same series from Autoline, they've gone back to talk to Sandy Munro. Now the Model 3 is in bits, on tables. And he raves about the electronics.
So this car under the rear seat has an electronics bay. And when you look at the electronics that are in this car, the density is out of this world. The layouts are wonderful. And the fact that they've integrated different disparate circuit boards into this myriad of, this is like a symphony of engineering.
Now, we know the battery tech coming out of the Gigafactory is just the best of the best, but I don't think he knew that, because then when he took it apart, he was surprised at the new battery technology.
This is the new cell. This is called a 2170. It's a little bit bigger, 20% bigger than the old one. It has new chemistry, and quite frankly, it gives you 50% more power. 20% bigger, but 50% more power. I'm pretty happy with that. This one here, we're very, very, very impressed with.
And for someone that's taken apart hundreds, maybe thousands of cars to write reports of them, maybe he was a little too quick to judge after just being with the first early release model of the Model 3 for just a few hours, because he seems to be eating some humble pie.
The Model 3 is profitable. So I have to eat crow. I didn't think it was going to happen this way, but the Model 3 is profitable.
Okay, you say profitable, but
over
what
30%.
Kind of over 30%?
Over 30%.
So nobody in the auto industry is getting 30% now, are they?
Yes, they are, but not in the electric field. No electric car is getting 30% net. Nobody.
And you have to say, huge respect for someone that made a YouTube video saying this.
This thing is a miserable job.
Just a fantastic little video to hear just as I popped into the studio tonight. So I thought I'd put it first in the news. Well, let's go to the rumour mill next. Now, I don't normally report on unsubstantiated rumours, so I don't really do it on this show. It's about the news. But here's one that's been cropping up a few times lately. So I thought we'd talk about it. Not so much that it's news, but actually it's kind of an interesting thing for you and I to have a little chat about. So last Friday, I went to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and I saw the first ever Model 3 officially shown off in Europe by Tesla here in the UK. And one of the things that I didn't ask was about the charging, I was so overwhelmed and impressed and was playing with the touchscreen. It was all intuitive and just opening up all the different places to store stuff. And one thing that didn't cross my mind was charging. Later in the day, one of the gang on Twitter said, "Did you look under the charge flap and what's in there?" And I thought it was a strange question to ask because I read his tweet and thought, probably be Type 2 in there. It's a US spec car, so I didn't think about looking. And then another one of the followers on Twitter who joins in with the conversation said it was sealed closed, but there'd be enough room in there for more. And that got my mind ticking. And then the next day, somebody else asked me about, did I look inside the charge flap? So I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then yesterday on Reddit, a new topic crops up. And it all starts to make sense. A German Tesla supporter, who goes under the name of Tesla Klaus, and I gather has posted previously with a degree of authority and knowledge, was charging at the superchargers in his Tesla. And he happened to bump into a Tesla technician. And he says that during a supercharger stop in Germany, the technician was busy replacing 2 cables. And he got chatting to him. And he said that he's doing preparations to add an additional cable to those superchargers. The additional cable is a CCS connector. Now, the superchargers will have 2 cables, the existing Type 2 and the new one, CCS Combo 2. That's needed because the European Model 3, this poster speculates, will come with a CCS Combo 2 port. Cables and connectors will be water-cooled to support more power. The reservoir with the coolant will be on top of the superchargers. And that's interesting. It's a rumour. This isn't news, by the way, but it's an interesting discussion topic. Here in Europe, Tesla uses a slightly modified Type 2 connector for the Model S Next for supercharging. And now Tesla have got form in tailoring the car to the market they're selling it to. They added the GBT DC connector to the Chinese S and X because it proliferates over there. The Model 3, however, has got lots of space in the charge port area. If you watch those YouTube videos, maybe you've got a Model 3 and you've wondered why there's so much space around the connector. Well, Japan flavours CHAdeMO, of course, or CHAdeMO, but Tesla has never supported that. CCS Combo 2 can deliver charging of 350 kilowatts, 1,000 volts, 500 amps. And in the European Union, here where I'm based, according to a directive in 2014, all high-power DC charging points installed anywhere in the European Union from November the 18th, 2017 onwards had to be equipped with interoperability purposes with Combo 2 connectors. It's written in the law. So, Elon has hinted before at Supercharger V3s. He's done more than hint. He said in the shareholder meeting that they're coming by the end of the year. Maybe that was Elon time. There are screenshots as well that we've seen floating around online of a Model 3, which is in factory mode, or dev mode if you like, which show the Model 3 capable of DC charging at a higher rate than current supercharger support. Lots of speculation around what that picture showed when it cropped up a few weeks ago. You can argue the Model S and Model X would need to support, if they were selling them in Europe, CCS Combo 2. That would tie in with a possible battery upgrade sometime towards the end of this year, if maybe the Gigafactory in Nevada is moving over to completely the cell architecture of the Model 3. This is all speculation. So it's just an interesting conversation topic. It's not news at all. One of the things that I get asked a lot or to comment on Twitter is which charge port do you think will win? People use that phrase like win. Is it like VHS and Betamax? Is it like a Blu-ray and HD DVD? And I always reply and say maybe it's like cell phone networks, like mobile networks. Maybe we'll start with 5 or 6. Over the years, those networks saw some mergers, and maybe what's wrong with having Vodafone and EE or T-Mobile or O2 or whoever your mobile networks are? There's normally 2 or 3 for competition. What would be wrong with that in terms of charge port connectors? And people often reply back and say, no, I want certainty. I want to know that I'm buying a car, and if I buy a car, that's going to be available when I turn up to a charge port, which I appreciate and I get. And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, and I get their side of the argument as well. If Tesla were to go to CCS Combo 2, it would really put pressure on, you probably say, just the Nissan Leaf, really, in terms of cars that sell at scale with CHAdeMO. In terms of connectors, there's going to be lots of those with the Electrify America rollout and billions of US dollars being spent in North America to build out as part of the compensation package this huge network of chargers. They will come with CHAdeMO, by the way. So it's not as if, I don't think that technology is going to be redundant anytime soon. But when you throw Tesla's weight and support behind a certain technology, it has a huge impact. So something to think about and something to comment on as well if you want to in the comments, or you can email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com. This is not news, it's purely speculation. It's something interesting to think about over the next few weeks and months, and you can have your say on it as well, and I'll read those out. Well, moving on, and Joe Kaiser, the global chief executive of the engineering giant Siemens, said almost a third of jobs could be lost as the transition from combustion engines to EVs takes place in the next 10 years in what will be the single most important transformation of all time. Writing in today's Guardian newspaper, Angela Monaghan said that speaking over the weekend at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, Kaiser said it would be a key challenge for the car industry leaders to build the car of the future responsibly and get the transformation right. Ultimately, many traditional roles will disappear in the short term, he does say. He says, and I quote, "It may cause a dip in employment because if you have 20 to 30 less value chain, you have 20 to 30% fewer jobs. That's how it's been in the first 3 industrial revolutions. Always been a significant change in employment," he says, and then, by enabling growth, it turned out more jobs were created, higher growth was achieved, and obviously more people moved out of poverty and had better lives, end quote. So, he says in the short term, EVs are going to be a massive disruption. In the long term, he thinks it's the 4th industrial revolution will create more jobs. Well, rollover accidents for electric vehicles are very rare. That's mostly because of the large and heavy batteries at the bottom of the vehicle, producing a low centre of gravity. Just last May, Tesla showed off how it tried to roll over the Model X in factory conditions, and they really couldn't do it. Reports JC Torres of Slash Gear, "I thought the car performed spectacularly from a safety standpoint," he says about a Tesla Model 3 crash. Hey, look, it's more than a crash. These pictures that I'll put a link in the show notes, it is a write-off. It's a rollover. The driver's seat airbags had protected this gentleman's wife during the roll. One underneath the steering wheel for legs, which we didn't even know about was there underneath the steering wheel. As you can see from the photos, if you go and have a look, the cabin was completely intact. The windshield and glass roof had shattered, but stayed intact. And this is a rollover on a glass roof. Totally intact, but yes, the glass had cracked. Obviously, it had shattered. Well, Redditor Staplegun shared his pictures of his blue Model 3. The front was totaled, especially the driver's side front wheel hit the freeway median with such force that it sheared the wheel off. The surprise was how the inside of the car, the safety cell, as I believe they call it, was totally fine. And more evidence there. Some people say that the Teslas are over-engineered. I like to think of them as safe. That's what they said about Volvos many years ago, that they were over-engineered. And then all of a sudden, all the other car companies started to do what Volvo were doing, which was side impact protection and airbags and things like that. So it's fantastic to see that they haven't scrimped and saved on safety just for a few extra bucks. Well, local authorities should allow 1 in 5 parking spaces to be converted to EV charging before 2025 to prepare for the increasing uptake of zero-emission vehicles, a new report recommended. According to James Fosdyke at Motor One, the National Infrastructure Commission's study was done particularly in the UK, but it applies everywhere. Councils should turn 5% of parking spaces immediately and on-street parking into EV charging, upping that to a fifth of all parking spaces by 2025, also including charging, and also suggesting that they regulate charging bays as well. Do you mean enforce people parking any old car in there? Yeah, I think everyone listening to this show would agree. Well, Forbes recently sat down with James Barclay, the director of Panasonic Jaguar Racing Team, to talk about Jaguar's involvement with Formula E and how the series will help the automaker continue to develop electric vehicles. And James says this, and I quote, "We're already seeing real-world learnings from our activity in Formula E that apply to our production cars. The construction of some of the hardware, like the e-motors and the inverter, the materials we use and the way we package them, the weight that we can achieve in a race car, how we can can maximise efficiency through software and control systems, how we optimise the whole powertrain from the inverter to the e-motors. Fundamentally, says James Barclay from Panasonic Jaguar Racing, fundamentally Formula E is about making cars go as fast as they can for as long as they can. And from a production standpoint, that's perfect, because if you can achieve it in a customer car, it means the customer can drive longer and faster too. As with all these stories, I'll put a link to the story, that Forbes story, going in the show notes. Well, Lamborghini will embrace electrification in its next-gen flagship supercar, which is due early in the next couple of years, the next decade, and in the models that follow. According to Steve Walker for Auto Express, plans are afoot, not just for a V12 hybrid in the Aventador replacement that'll come first, but for a V10 hybrid in the next Huracan, and a fourth Lamborghini model line is under consideration. The V12 hybrid Aventador replacement has already been confirmed to Auto Express earlier this year, and an all-electric Lamborghini, whilst it isn't part of the firm's immediate plans, is an option beyond the next-generation hybrid supercar. Well, the Lamborghini CEO, Stefano Domenicali, said this, and I quote, "When we're talking about performance, the killer of performance is weight. But the more you go for new technology, the more you have to counterbalance to ensure you keep weight under control." End quote. All right, hands up who thinks he's talking about solid-state batteries there. A few years away, counterbalancing weight. We'll see. Well, Zipcar announced last week that it had started making Volkswagen e-Golfs available. Users in London will eventually have a pick of 325 e-Golfs, according to the Evening Standard. They're going to be available on Zipcar's Flex tariff. That's 31 pence a minute, and you have a range of 130 miles for short trips only in London. Some of the e-Golfs will be charged at the roadside, but most will be collected and taken to a rapid charging station. That doesn't sound optimal. And finally, how do you fancy a new job? How do you fancy working at the Gigafactory? I found this on ZipRecruiter. They're looking for a senior quality engineer of the Gigafactory. What a job this would be. Little look at the job description, see if you fit the bill. The successful candidate for this position must have a broad technical background with the ability to work with engineering, manufacturing, service and suppliers across a wide variety of issues. Strong interpersonal and communication skills are an absolute requirement to establish effective working relationships within Tesla and outside. Development of manufacturing requirements, quality standards and production quality plans to assure products will meet expectations of our target customers. Is that you? Oh, they haven't mentioned in the job description that Elon might be sleeping on the factory floor and coming over to ask, "What's this? How did you do that? Why is it like that?" He's very hands-on, and I'm sure that everybody who works there must be super intelligent and have an answer for everything when the boss knows your job as well as you do. Well, no time today. Look, almost at 20 minutes. No time today to dive into the community and some of the feedback from yesterday, the emails and some of the feedback and the comments. But we'll get into those tomorrow. So if you have sent some, thank you. I will read those out. In the meantime, there's 182 previous episodes of this podcast on iTunes. And occasionally on a Saturday, we'll do a special. We'll do interviews. We've chatted to people about new pop-up charging in the road. We've talked to people about converting trucks to range-extended electric trucks. This Saturday, by the way, a little tease of what's coming soon. I'm going to be talking to a company called Moixa and the Chief Technology Officer of Moixa. Starting out, when I first heard of them, was a £5,000 solar and storage package for your home. And they're moving into a connected grid world and some super clever platform stuff with your EVs to balance the grid and all those kind of things. We will find out more on a Saturday special this weekend. In the meantime, catch up with any previous show on iTunes, Google Play. Doesn't seem to be updating, but it's not a problem with me. It's Google. They've emailed me to say sorry. They're on it. Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, and we put the audio on YouTube. The blog is evnewsdaily.com. If you subscribe on any of those platforms, you get it for free and also automatically in first. If you want to leave a little review, which takes 2 minutes, it would mean a lot to me. And if you want to say hi on the socials, search EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow.